Why is there no bridge between France and Britain? The UK and France aren't that far apart. They've been connected by a tunnel since 1994, but the Channel Tunnel is for railway traffic only. Surely, a bridge would be easier to build. In fact, this idea has been proposed many times. Boris Johnson mentioned it as a foreign secretary in 2018. Yet there doesn't seem to be any enthusiasm from either side. Why? There are two types of bridges for spanning long distances. These are cable-stayed and suspension bridges. They don't need as many pylons as conventional bridges. This is important to allow ships to pass through. The longest suspension bridge in the world is quite old. It's the 1915 Çanakkale Bridge in Turkey. The 1915 is part of the name. It actually opened in 2022. The bridge spans the Dardanelles and is 1.25 miles long. The longest cable-stayed bridge is the Rysky Bridge in Russia. It's 1.93 miles long and connects Vladivostok and Rysky Island. It still has a number of densely spaced pylons on either side. A bridge over the English Channel would require a span of 22 miles. That's 11 times longer than the Rysky Bridge. This presents a considerable engineering challenge. The channel is between 130 and 195 feet deep. Some passenger ships are more than 230 feet tall, so the pylons would have to be around 500 feet tall. To support the cables, pylons would have to be added above the deck. That would mean a total pylon height well above 1,500 feet. Nothing this tall has ever been built. Building pylons of that height is a challenge in itself. But then there's the wind factor to consider. Civil engineers do something called vibrational analysis. It studies how the wind affects the pylons and the cables. They vibrate when hit by the wind. In some instances, this can create so-called flutter. This causes the entire structure to become unstable. Flutter is what brought down the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in 1940. There's only one way to prevent cable overstress: build more pylons to hold the bridge up. But this would obstruct the waterway. The cables would also have to be very strong and light. Carbon fiber composites are very expensive. They're used in modern bridge cables. A bridge that big would cost billions. Another unknown quantity is the seafloor. Bottom conditions might not be suitable for pylon foundations. This is something that would have to be researched. Research of that kind is a very costly undertaking in itself. None of it makes building a channel bridge impossible. Indeed, the idea is hardly new. There were design proposals as far back as the 19th century. In 1889, a detailed plan was presented at the Iron and Steel Institute in Paris. What doomed the project was its cost. It was estimated at £34 million, an enormous sum in 1889. But there were more recent plans too. In the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher's government reviewed one such plan. It envisioned a 21-mile toll bridge suspended at 220 feet. Cars would have paid £5.60 and trucks £8 to cross. The engineers estimated the cost of building it at £3 billion, but they believed they could raise £220 million in tolls every year. The project was tabled. Andreas Kapos, director of the Research Center for Civil Engineering Structures, sums it up nicely.
In principle, it is feasible in the sense that there are nominally similar projects in other parts of the world. But based on my experience, the cost will be huge. So if you ask my personal opinion, I don't think this will be a good idea.